it's all going to zero against Bitcoin.
It's going up forever.
You're against Bitcoin, you're against freedom.
Might be elected again shortly.
I think it's very likely. And if it happens, it is likely to be the kind of like the death blow to what remains of the global order. And he says it openly. Now, again, it should be clear that many of these politicians, they present a false dichotomy, a false binary vision of the world, as if you have to choose between patriotism and globalism, between being loyal to your nation and being loyal to some kind of, I don't know, global government or whatever.
Yo, welcome to Simple Bitcoin Live, the most watched daily Bitcoin live show on YouTube, Rumble, and X. Will be your guide through the separation of money and state. Once again, shout out to Yuval Harari. I thought there was no global order. And now he's saying the quiet part out loud. Maybe this is why they tried to assassinate him a couple days ago. Maybe this is also the same Yuval Harari that said that we should trust central banking, and that the reason that he doesn't like Bitcoin is that it's a currency of mistrust, and that, you know, the last 100 years have shown that governments controlling money has actually been a really good thing. So he's kind of like the inverse Kramer for the demons, the monetary demons. He's like the inverse Harari. That maybe I just coined that. But yeah, that's crazy, because, you know, that's something that a couple of years ago was completely outside the Overton window, and you would have said, "What global order? What are you talking about?" Right? So that's pretty insane. So yeah, pretty crazy. Wanted to play that clip for you guys because when I saw it for the first time, I did kind of like a double take. I was like, wait, he said the quiet part out loud? This is crazy. Anyways, in other news, Jamie Dimon, I said it on yesterday's show. I was like, look, there's rumblings, there's rumors that Jamie Dimon might be tapped to be the Treasury Secretary during the Trump administration. And I said, I don't like that. This guy doesn't like Bitcoin. Literally the day after, he's like, there's a Forbes art. There's an article coming out of let me see the specific publication, Forbes, literally saying that he changed his tune on Bitcoin, right? And that kind of reminds me of a very, very famous quote from Max Kaiser, which is, you don't change Bitcoin, Bitcoin changes you, right? And that's applied to many, many people. Of course, Michael Saylor was he was against Bitcoin initially. There's a very famous tweet. He didn't delete it, by the way, to give him credit, of him basically saying, like, this Bitcoin thing's going to go away. Larry Fink, he had the famous line, Bitcoin is an index of money laundering. Jamie Dimon has been a detractor. He's hated Bitcoin. He's, you know, every time he gets asked in a press conference, it's like he's going to blow a gasket. And of course, Trump was not a fan of Bitcoin either, right? So what I think is happening, and this is something that I think a lot of people have to wrap their heads around, right? Because a lot of people, I always hear this time and time and time again, which is, okay, Nico, these are politicians, these are bankers, this is Larry Fink, you shouldn't trust them. Like, no shit. You don't have to trust them. Trust their incentives, right? Like, do you think that Bitcoin miners are just mining this out of the goodness of their heart? Do you think that people that run nodes are just like, okay, I'm going to run a node to protect the Bitcoin network? Maybe in the very, very early days, like that's what Satoshi did. But now on a mass scale, do you think that's happening? Do you think you have massive publicly traded Bitcoin mining companies because they're just mining Bitcoin to protect the network? No, they're doing it because they want to profit, right? Bitcoin is an incentive structure system. It's an aligned incentive structure system. So it's very difficult for us to come from the fiat world, which is a misaligned incentive structure system where only an elite few benefit at the cost of everyone else, to an aligned incentive structure system where everybody wins. That's very foreign to people. And I think it's a very difficult pill to swallow. And I'll give you a really good example of this. When the China mining ban happened and the hash rate dropped 50%, taking the price down with it, I believe that's one of the reasons we then hit 100K last cycle, by the way. The hash rate recovered within 6 months and the price without any central party or central authority telling the miners to plug back in. It was the Bitcoin incentive structure. If there's less miners, that means that there's more rewards for the miners that are currently on the network, meaning it's more profitable. So it created a situation where a bunch of entrepreneurs were like, holy cow, we have to plug in our miners because we're losing money. This is a great opportunity for us. This is the same, apply that same logic to politicians. Bitcoin doesn't need politicians. We've gotten to a point where our movement is so influential, so powerful, that politicians need Bitcoin to get elected, right? And apply this to Jamie Dimon. Trump probably told, I'm telling you, this conversation happened because the RNC and Trump have taken a very pro-Bitcoin stance. And I bet you this conversation happened behind closed doors. Jamie, I understand that you don't like Bitcoin, but if you want to become Treasury Secretary, you have to be pro-Bitcoin because this is part of our party platform now. Jamie Dimon weighed his options and he said, yeah, I kind of want to be Treasury Secretary. Sure. Yeah, no problem. I'll be pro-Bitcoin. This is the incentives. Like, this is the reality. This is human nature, right? To think that this is some type of, idealistic thing and, everyone's doing this for ideals and, we're all coming together, kumbaya. That's naive. That's not how Bitcoin works. Bitcoin works because it's an aligned incentive structure model. The node runners run the nodes because they want their own copy of the blockchain. They don't want to trust someone else's. And of course, they want to make the network more secure because they hold bags. The Bitcoin miners, they're mining Bitcoin because they want to make money, right? It gives them an opportunity to get cheaper Bitcoin, lower than spot price, right? So if you mine Bitcoin, you could probably mine it for like 40. The cost of mining one Bitcoin would probably be like 45K versus buying it spot 63K, right? And of course, Bitcoin evangelists, Bitcoin podcasters, why are they talking about Bitcoin all day? It's probably because they own Bitcoin. They believe in Bitcoin, right? So it's like everyone pursuing their own greed and their own incentives actually makes the network stronger. That's the beauty of Bitcoin, right? That applies to politicians. That applies to people like Jamie Dimon. That applies to people like Larry Fink. You don't have to trust them. Trust their incentives. I would rather, and this is something that comes core to Bitcoin and its ethos, right? Which is don't trust, verify. Like you don't have to trust these people. Like you shouldn't trust these people. Just trust their bags, right? Like the fact that the vice president, JD Vance, like the Republican nominee for vice president, he owns $250,000 worth of Bitcoin. I don't have to trust the man. I trust his bags, right? Do you think he's going to vote against his bags? It's as simple as that. So I think that's a pill that a lot of Bitcoiners haven't swallowed yet. They haven't come to terms with because I think, we've been living through this very kind of idealistic phase in Bitcoin's history, which is good. Those are the hardcore holders. That's the line. That's the triarii, right? That's the line of last defense. Those are the people that you want to fall back to. Saylor calls them the cyber hornets, right? The hodlers of last resort, without a doubt. Like Jamie Dimon is not a hodler of last resort. Neither is Donald Trump, right? But now Bitcoin is getting into the political discussion. And we have to be realists. Like we have to be real, right? Anyways, so I did want to talk about that. Also, another person to bend the knee as well is Mark Cuban. And he actually came out with a pretty long post on Twitter kind of explaining, why Silicon Valley has changed their support, because Silicon Valley tends to support the Democrats, and why they've changed tune towards supporting Trump. And of course, you know what the reason is? Trump is pro-Bitcoin. So it's just very interesting how all these things are coming to play. But again, all of this isn't happening out of coincidence. All of this is happening because of the game theory, because of Bitcoin's incentives. And that is something that you have to understand, because once you understand that, then we already won the game. Because the other side, the party of green, the party of fiat, the party of CBDCs, what they have going for them is coercion. They have to coerce people into using their system. Never in human history has that worked. Think about the war on drugs. Think about East Berlin, West Berlin. Think about Cuba and Miami. Well, what happens, right? Like, we're going to build a wall. There's an ocean between you and freedom. There's a wall between you and freedom. We're going to coerce you into this collectivist system because we want to. What happens? People flee. They're like, I'm willing to risk my life because I see more opportunity there. There's an incentive there, right? So I'm bullish on incentives. That's why Bitcoin's going to win. That's why the game theory is playing out the way it is. And that's why I already know we won. We're just witnessing it throughout history. And of course, this is why we're here. We'll be your guide through the separation of money and state. Anyway, it's going to be a great show. I have my legendary co-host listening to you guys in the comments. And a lot of you guys, we did a poll yesterday. Opti, we should release another poll today as well while we're talking. But,
what's the poll? Do you trust Jamie Dimon?
Oh man. But yeah, we should release another poll today so we could talk about it with the audience. But like the poll that we released yesterday, I gotta say I was quite disappointed, ladies and gentlemen, but I did see a lot of people checking out the Start9 website. By the way, Start9, best node in the business. It's the one I run. That's the one that Opti runs. You can use promo code simplybitcoin. You get 9% off. But we asked the audience, and it was like 500 or 600 people that voted in that poll. And 72% of you guys voted that you did not run a node.
So we're covering nodes.
No. That is not good. No bueno. Look, I get it. 5 years ago is pretty difficult. You know, you didn't have all the all these awesome operating systems, and
you
people
have
were
Start9. I get it.
Yeah, like literally, you could literally just buy a node. It's completely pre-made. You don't have to build it yourself. It's easy to use. Like, you have no excuse. If you own Bitcoin and you don't run a node, when you're using a wallet, you're trusting someone else's node and you're doxing your balance in the process, right? So only by using your own node and connecting it to your Bitcoin wallet, that's the only way that you can actually have privacy, right? So that's something to keep in mind. And 72% of you guys watching right now are probably like, oh, Pikachu face, like, that's crazy. But I know, I get it. It's another level. It sounds complicated. People are probably like, Nico, node, what does that mean? It's just a computer that's running Bitcoin. That's
running the Bitcoin software.
That's all it is. It's just a computer that's running the Bitcoin software. The node is just a very fancy term for it. So Opti is gonna do kind of a live demonstration of the Start9 OS, and I don't know what else. We'll
cover like what a node is, why you need a node. I'll even go to the bitcoin.org website so that you guys can, maybe you want to go old school and get yourself just download Bitcoin Core on a computer. But I will go over Start9. I have mine hooked up here so you guys can see the interface and what it looks like and some cool things going on there. But Nico, before we move on, I do want to acknowledge the fact that now finally the meme of only criminals like Bitcoin is true, because now we have Jamie Dimon 180 on this, and he's a Bitcoiner now. Well, at least seemingly changing his tune.
Real quick, Opti, what's your take on Harari, bro?
Oh man, dude, I dislike him so much. Didn't they gaslight
us for years, basically saying that there was no global order, and he's basically saying like this is a threat to the global order?
He is the worst. He is by far the worst. Like, not only is he anti-human, what's all the things he said before? Like, humans are now, with technology, humans are useless and useless eaters, and like, oh, we're gonna basically like plug in humans to computers, and AI is gonna take over the world, and like, we don't need all these useless eaters. We gotta basically pump them up with drugs and pornography so that they can, like be what's the from 19? I forget which one. So that they can have their soma, so that they don't care about what's going on, and we can control everything. And the global order's got that. Like, I absolutely dislike him. And I won't use the H word because my mother taught me that's a strong word. But he's close to that list of like, this guy is disgusting. Like, he is so anti-human, it hurts. And anytime he talks, I'm just like, I just get the ick. I don't like him at all.
Yeah, man. It's but I'm glad they're saying the quiet part out loud. Also, another news too, it seems like a company was shorting Donald Trump's media company, and shorting Rumble a couple days before the assassination. I mean, like the slope roof. This is lots of interesting things. Anyways, but we're not going to get into that today.
Yeah, I was going to say, are we going to get into it? Because there's some fishy stuff.
I'm just saying, like, goddamn, bro, they're saying global order. Like,
there's some
what
fishy
is going
stuff on that one.
Anyways, I do want to give a shout out to our lead sponsor. Guys, this is the best place to build your automatic self-custody Bitcoin stack. Buy real Bitcoin, enable your independence with the fastest and safest way to buy Bitcoin in Canada and the USA. You could do that at bitcoinwell.com. You head over to the website, put in your email, you get started. Literally takes 2 or 3 minutes to set up your account, and you'll be on your way to buying automatic self-custody Bitcoin. That means every time you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, as soon as your funds clear, it goes straight to your self-custody Bitcoin wallet address, which perfectly aligns with the Simply Bitcoin ethos of the separation of money and state. By the way, when you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, you earn Bitcoin Well points, and you can use those towards the Bitcoin Wishing Well contest. You can win up to 1 million Satoshis every time you throw a coin into the Bitcoin Wishing Well, and we'll do that for you guys right now. First person to scan the QR code gets the sats. Again, opportunity to win up to 1 million Satoshis. By the way, if you use promo code SimplyBTC, you'll get 3 tosses into the Bitcoin Wishing Well absolutely free on the house. So guys, sign up to bitcoinwell.com today. Support self-custody by default Bitcoin on-ramps, because after all, self-custody is the revolution. All right, everybody, let's get to the numbers. Lots to talk about.
The Bitcoin numbers.
Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Is your seed phrase really secure? Stamp Seed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of just writing them on paper. Don't store your generational wealth on paper. Paper is prone to water damage, fire damage. You want to put your generational wealth on one of the strongest metals on planet Earth, titanium. Your words are actually stamped into this metal plate with this hammer and these letter stamps. And once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamped seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They're also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin with peace of mind for the long haul. Stamp your seed on Stamp Seed. All right, everybody. You see that QR code on your screen right now? You could scan it. It'll take you directly to the Stamp Seed website, where you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off. Remember, guys, you want to stamp your seed phrase on titanium. You don't want to write it down on paper. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is 63,730. Sats per dollar 1,569. Block height 852,764. Blocks to halving 197,236. Halving estimate March 28th, 2028. Total Lightning Network capacity, 5,082 BTC. Capacity value, 324 million. Realized monetary inflation, 1.51%. Market capitalization, 1.26 trillion. Bitcoin versus gold market cap, 7.48%. In the grand scheme of things, we're just getting started. I told you guys in the beginning of the episode that 2 very notable figures have bent the knee towards Bitcoin. I haven't been a fan of Mark Cuban and his takes as of late. I think he's a little bit disconnected from reality. But anyways, here's Dylan LeClaire. It says, billionaire Mark Cuban, formerly a crypto plurist who claimed Bitcoin to have no utility, who recently met with Biden administration officials and senators for a crypto policy roundtable, is now bull posting Bitcoin maximalist rhetoric referencing geopolitical game theory. Right? I said this in the beginning, guys. I said incentives and game theory. This is why Bitcoin is inevitable. The game theory and the incentives. This is why we were able to predict so many of the things that we've been able to predict over the last couple of years. If you guys have been subscribers to Simply Bitcoin, like I think Alex Jones's branding is like tomorrow's news today. Alex Jones, I think he has this prophetic way of seeing things. We don't have those prophetic ways of seeing things. I guess not. We're just using Bitcoin's game theory. It's as simple as that. Like once you understand game theory, you understand that Bitcoin's going to win. Why? Because it has better incentives. It's really as simple as that. And then you understand that it's inevitable that public companies are going to put this on their balance sheet. It's inevitable that nation states are going to mine it. It's inevitable that nation states are going to potentially make it legal tender. We were calling it before El Salvador. It happened a lot faster than I thought. Just like it going into mainstream politics in the United States, I knew it was going to happen. I was predicting like 2028. It happened a lot sooner. So it seems like all of this is happening a lot faster than I anticipated. But the reason that this is so obvious, and I think the reason that a lot of Bitcoiners knew this was going to happen, is because of the game theory and the incentives. Anyways, I can't emphasize that enough. So here's Mark Cuban. He goes on to say, part 1. Here's a contrary opinion on the emergence of Silicon Valley support for former President Trump, which, like all my opinions on here, probably won't be popular. It's a Bitcoin play. You understand how powerful that is? Silicon Valley has always supported the Democrats. What did the Democrats do? Right? And I would even say that Silicon Valley, like ideologically, like they're more in the camp of the Democrats than the Republicans. But what did the Democrats do in regards? It's not only just Bitcoin. Like, let's be real. Against the entire quote unquote crypto industry, of which Bitcoin is the biggest part, obviously. What did they do? They just completely went against it. They were hostile. They persecuted the industry. They locked developers in jail. They were warning about proposing these mining taxes. They made it political. They created this situation themselves. And Silicon Valley, of course, they're holding huge bags, right? So what they're saying, like, you're attacking my bags. I'm going to support the political party that's supporting my bags. And now connect this with what I was saying in the opening monologue. This is the game theory, ladies and gentlemen. You don't change Bitcoin. Bitcoin changes you, right? Right here, right? Silicon Valley doesn't change Bitcoin. Bitcoin changed Silicon Valley, even if it means voting for voting for the opposing party that typically doesn't align with them on an ideological level, right? Anyways, Mark Cuban goes on to say, not because the former president is a far stronger proponent of crypto, that's nice, but doesn't really impact the price of crypto. It makes it easier to operate a crypto business because of the inevitable and required changes at the SEC. What will drive the price of BTC is lower tax rates and tariffs, which, if history is any guide, will be inflationary. Combine that with global uncertainty as to the geopolitical role of the USA. And again, I can't emphasize this enough. Why is it uncertain? I can tell you why. They politicized and weaponized the money with US sanction policy. If you're Russia or if you're China and you're using dollars to facilitate international trade, and all of a sudden you basically have a metaphorical gun to your head by the Treasury Department, in the form of sanctions, are you not incentivized to seek an alternative? They created this very problem. Money should not be politicized. Bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. thought they knew better. They didn't, obviously. Anyways, and the impact of the US dollar as a reserve currency, and you can't align the stars any better for a BTC price acceleration. And another thing I want to say too, like, look, another reason as to why countries are dropping the dollar as a reserve currency, the US government continues to spend like crazy. Like, they don't care. They continue to spend more money they collect in tax revenue. And the reason that inflation isn't like Argentina is because every country on planet Earth holds dollars or uses dollars to trade. But they're looking at the US and they're saying, why should you have that privilege at our expense, right? Because inflation, it gets exported, right? It's not just something that affects people here in the US. If you're holding dollars overseas, you're losing purchasing power also. Anyways, so both these things, The global uncertainty as the geopolitical role of the USA and the impact on the dollar, both of those things are caused by the bureaucratic elite, so-called elite. I don't see them as elite, but the bureaucratic elites, how they see themselves in Washington, D.C. and their policy, which have completely hurt Americans, which is why you're seeing the rise of populism. Anyways, how high can the price go? Way higher than you think. Remember, the market for BTC is global, and the supply has a final limit of 21 million BTC with unlimited fractionalization. Keep that in mind as you consider what happens if because of geopolitical uncertainty and the decline of the dollar as a reserve currency, BTC becomes a safe haven globally, which means that BTC could be what countries and all of us look to buy as a means to protect our savings. No shit, Sherlock. This is someone, again, that a couple years ago, he was basically shitting on Bitcoin, basically making the case that that Bitcoin is useless, that it has no value. And now all of a sudden, guess what? He's using all the Bitcoin talking points. He's found Satoshi. He's like, it's so obvious. And this is game theory. Like, think about it. Every single person, notable Mark Cuban, Jamie Dimon, Donald Trump, Michael Saylor, like the list goes on. They've all inevitably bended the knee because incentives matter, because the game theory matters. Bitcoin is superior money, full stop. Do you have the humility to admit that? Great. You will be able to get it at a cheaper price. If you don't have the humility to admit that, like Peter Schiff, bro, you're going to get absolutely wrecked. Anyways, goes on to say, crazy, it already happens in countries facing hyperinflation. And if things really go further than we can imagine today, parentheses, and I'm not saying that they will, just that this has a possibility somewhere above zero, then BTC becomes exactly what the maxis envision, a global currency. Now, this last part, I believe he's wrong. Why? I don't think the world needs the US dollar hyperinflating for Bitcoin to become the global currency. I think it's going to become the global currency because it's the better currency, right? And I think that there's only so many things you can do from a coercive standpoint to slow that down, but you can't stop it. I'll give you another example. When China seems to be changing tune as it relates to Bitcoin. And they're like hinting at unbanning it and kind of walking back the policy. Why? Why did that happen? Well, it's very simple. If the US is going to have a pro-Bitcoin government and they have a Bitcoin ETF, right? China now is at a geopolitical disadvantage if it doesn't have it has an ETF in Hong Kong, which is they use that as a proxy, right? But now if they don't have a thriving kind of Bitcoin industry in China, now they are at a geopolitical disadvantage versus the United States, which they see as an opponent of theirs, right? This is the game theory, ladies and gentlemen. This is what I'm talking about. This is what Max Kaiser's talking about when he was talking about the global hash wars and all that. Like you have Donald Trump basically saying like, I want all the Bitcoin being mined in the US, right? Like, and people are like, they're like, Nico, that's terrible for centralization. It's like, dude, do you not understand that all the other countries around the world, they all have egomaniacs as presidents and they all want to be like, no, I want the hash rate here too. Like, and what happens when countries compete for your business? As an individual, you win, right? So this is beautiful. Love hash wars. Thank you, Oliver. There's a mosquito on my face and I just killed it. Wah, live. But yeah, man, this is really bullish stuff. And now you have the CEO of America's largest bank, JP Morgan, changing tune as well. I mean, I'm not surprised. You know what, Opti, I'm not surprised, but I am surprised in how quick it's happened. I'll say that. Like, this has happened way quicker than I could have ever have anticipated. What's your take?
I mean, I'm more surprised before I give you my take on the whole Mark Cuban stuff. I'm more surprised on that, like, as a Bitcoiner, I'm like, yeah, this is great. Finally they're embracing Bitcoin, roses at the end of the tunnel, bright orange future, all that good stuff. But I'm more surprised that it's all happening at the same time. And it really starts to give me the ick. And I'm feeling like it feels like some coordinated effort to embrace Bitcoin. And now that all the biggest bankers and the politicians and billionaires are starting to come out, maybe it's just my inherent paranoia as a Bitcoiner. I'm just like, okay, where's the angle? What are they trying to do? As much as I believe that Bitcoin is unstoppable and it will win, I think it's very important to keep your head on a swivel and try to see where they is a possibility of co-opting Bitcoin so that we don't get complacent. That's my PSA before I go into the Mark Cuban tweet in general. I'm old enough to remember Mark Cuban saying that he'd rather own bananas than Bitcoin, which was only a few years ago. So yes, it's great he's coming out and talking about Bitcoin. And I'm seeing Loco in the chat like, don't make fun of and mock new Bitcoiners. Totally get it. But this is our job, is to bring the receipts here. And as much as I love the Mavericks, I'm in Dallas and I just recently became a Mavericks fan, and Mark Cuban owns the Mavericks and they're great and, sports ball and all that. I don't really see how this is an unpopular take, to be honest. Like, he must not be listening to the same, or he must not be speaking to the same audience that we are. It's like we've been saying that on Simply Bitcoin for, I don't know, the last month or so, of like, of course, this is a political move. Of course, this is a Bitcoin move of Trump and the RNC coming out and saying that they're going to embrace Bitcoin and hopefully bring Bitcoin business, or rather keep Bitcoin businesses and not push Bitcoiners out of the country, and make sure that all Bitcoin are mined in America, or whatever Trump said. So it's becoming very obvious that this is a Bitcoin play, because when you really look at the numbers here, there's what's the number? It's like 10 to 50 million Bitcoin holders in the US, or crypto holders in the US. Like, that's a huge voting block. So of course they're going to try to do their best to ensure that they get voted in. Like, it's pure politics in general. But the thing about Bitcoin moving forward is, like I said yesterday, I'm pretty sure it was yesterday, like, it's such a novel idea that politicians and bankers work for the people they claim to work for. And so as much as I am still paranoid and got my tinfoil hat on and wondering like, okay, what's the angle? I'm also not too naive to believe that, oh, wow, they're realizing that they've lost control. And yeah, you want to get on the right side of history and embrace Bitcoin, because you're only going to hurt yourself. And hey, maybe someday soon, maybe in our lifetime, politicians will work for the people they claim to work for. Maybe bankers will work for the people that give them money and they get their profits off. And hopefully, as we move forward, Bitcoin ensures that. And so I'm not surprised that, Mark Cuban came out and said this. It's literally something we say on the show every single day. It's like, yes, of course, this is a Bitcoin play. Yes, of course, Bitcoin is global. Yes, of course, this is the game theory playing out in real time, and Bitcoin's a safe haven asset. And everyone is waking up to that idea now, whether, begrudgingly or not. They're starting to realize what we've been talking about for a long time. Hey, you can buy treasuries if you want. You can buy government debt if you want, but there's a better option, and it is Bitcoin. It's been the best performing asset the last decade, and I think it will continue to be the best performing asset. And I love the fact that they're finally coming out and saying what we've been saying for a long time. Again, these are all signals to the average person out there that, hey, Bitcoin is legitimate, and it might be something that I want to hold. So, of course, I'm still paranoid, and I'm still like, okay, what's the angle here? I've been listening to my Whitney Webb and Mark Goodwin as well, and I'm wondering where they can co-opt this network. But I think as long as we all work from first principles here, and we're taking Bitcoin into custody, you're running nodes, then, hey, you guys want to buy our bags and pump our bags? Like, this is great. I'm okay with this. It really does feel like this time might be different now that we have the institutions, now that we have billionaires with some conviction. Well, we're still not at the conviction stage yet, but we're starting to trend towards that direction. This is good for us. I think the end of this year is going to get absolutely crazy. I think 2025 is going to be crazy in Bitcoin price action. But again, it's very important that we do keep our head on a swivel. We do stay kind of paranoid. And we, not necessarily mocking new entrants, but also not hero worshiping new entrants, because, hey, there's no one different on the Bitcoin network. We are all holders on the Bitcoin network. We all have the same problem. 8 billion people on planet Earth all have the same problem. Fiat currencies are trash and there's nothing to save in. And Bitcoin is the superior money. And now people are, at the very least, talking about it and spreading that signal, even if it's like a Streisand effect where they're like, oh, this is a bad thing. Because it does kind of seem like there's a little hint of like, oh, this is a bad thing. And of course, this is what's going to play out. But yeah, man, it's all good for Bitcoin. This is great.
100%. Also, shout out to Casey for pointing this out. Yeah, help us get to 200 likes. If you guys are enjoying the show so far, make sure to smash that like button. Really, really helps with the algos and helps push the orange signal forward. Anyways, before we move on to the next block, I do want to give a very special shout out to sponsor. Guys, the Pleb Party's coming up, ladies and gentlemen. Pleb Party Nashville 2024. It's going to be hosted July 25th, the day before the largest Bitcoin conference on planet Earth, Bitcoin 2024 in Nashville, the one where Donald Trump's going to be speaking at. There's going to be a party the day before. That's the Pleb Party. The party, everyone's going to be there. Larry Lepard, Preston Pish, the entire Simply Bitcoin crew, James Lavish, Robert Breedlove, Mark Moss, Pubby, Tatum Turnup, Adam O'Brien, potentially Michael Saylor. So you definitely don't want to miss this. You won't be able to get tickets at the door. It's going to be hosted at an amazing venue, a rustic automobile factory from 1910 with brick walls and tons of proof of work atmosphere. So if you're going to the Bitcoin 2024 conference in Nashville, which is already going to be absolutely bonkers, you definitely don't want to miss this event. Thursday, July 25th. The Pleb Party in Nashville. Scan the QR code or check the link in the video description for more details. All right, everybody, let's hit the news.
The Daily News.
I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Foundation Devices. It's self-custody done right. They built a premium grade hardware wallet called Passport right here in the US. It's fully open source and verifiable. It's the most intuitive Bitcoin wallet designed with a UX reminiscent of a simple feature phone. So you will know how to navigate it and use it the moment you pick it up. Get your Bitcoin off exchanges and into your own hands in just a few minutes. Experience the peace of mind that comes with taking ownership of your own keys. After a massive sellout during Bitcoin Miami 2023, the Passport is back in stock at foundationdevices.com. Bitcoin only, open source verifiable, completely air-gapped security model, gorgeous design craft, premium grade materials. If you're thinking about getting your Bitcoin off exchanges, this is the one for you. Check out the Passport link in the show notes below to learn more. All right, everybody. Quick update on this. But before we do that, also, by the way, scan the QR code on your screen. You could use promo code SIMPLY. You get yourself a discount to the Passport hardware wallet. Remember, guys, not your keys, not your cheese. Opti's holding it up right now. Opti, could you do that one more time? And it's a beautiful device, incredibly easy to use. Take self-custody of your Bitcoin. Opti's e-girling for us. The device does not come with Opti. I mean,
with the right price, it might.
I was going to say that, but Opti beat me to it. Anyways, so this was just to kind of give you guys an idea of how serious this is getting and how real this is. This is a Business Week interview with the potential future president, and the title of it from Business Week is Trump on Taxes, Tariffs, Jerome Powell, and More. Now, what's really interesting about this is that a major part of this, in regards to his so-called Trumponomics, a major part of this is, you guessed it, Bitcoin, which is absolutely insane. This is something that we've been talking about for a couple of weeks now, but this is the real deal. This isn't only about Trump, but the RNC, the Republican National Convention. By the way, they just hosted Bitcoin Magazine. Shout out Mike Germano. Shout out our boy Nick Can't Mine for being there and covering what's going on in the RNC convention. Yes, the RNC has made it part of the official party platform to protect the right to self-custody, to protect the right to mine. So this is a big deal. I can't emphasize that enough. So anyways, I'm going to read you some quotes as they relate. I don't really care about all the other stuff. because we are a Bitcoin show after all. Quote the parts in this Business Week interview as it relates to, of course, our industry. So he goes on to say, this is Trump, he'd unleash the crypto industry and rein in reckless big tech companies. In short, he'd make the economy great again. It's so funny. The memes write themselves. So it goes on to say, where is the highlighted part? God damn it. There it is. Okay. So this is all the stuff that it relates to Bitcoin. His reversal on cryptocurrency, this is what I was talking about earlier, where everyone kind of eventually bends the knee, has been marked by similar dynamics. Not long ago, he criticized Bitcoin as a scam and a, quote, disaster waiting to happen. Now he says it and other cryptocurrencies should be made in the USA. He frames this about face as a practical necessity. Again, game theory. I can't say, I don't know how many times I have to say this, ladies and gentlemen. Game theory. If we don't do it, China is going to figure it out, and China is going to have it, or somebody else. Common effing sense, right? Like Opti said, it's like you can't ban yourself from Bitcoin. You can only you can't ban Bitcoin. You can only ban yourself from Bitcoin. Seems like the Trump administration understands that, and they're like, look, let's make it happen here in the US, right? Anyways, it goes on to say, not coincidentally, the crypto industry, spurned by the Democratic Party, brimming with cash and eager for friends in Washington, has now found its way to Trump. Quote, thanks largely to the actions of the SEC, the Biden administration has stumbled into becoming anti-crypto. It goes on to say, quote, given that about 20% of Democrats own crypto per polling, its ownership skews young and non-white. This was politically unwise. No shit, Sherlock. Who has been saying this? It's almost as if the Business Week folks are watching Simply Bitcoin. Anyways, it goes on to say, Trump has moved to fill the void. Dude, I think people are watching our show, dude. Like, I think this is like word for word the arguments that we've been making, which is nuts. Anyways, yes, obviously, if you create an opportunity for the opposing political party, they're going to capitalize on it. And that's exactly what the Republicans and Trump did. Declaring in a May speech that he would stop Joe Biden's crusade to crush crypto, the following month, he reaped the benefits, raising money from Bitcoin miners at a Mar-a-Lago fundraiser. Trump's campaign then announced it would, quote, build a crypto army, and it now accepts crypto contributions, right? So I said that we've been covering this. I wanted to read you guys the business. This is like top echelon legacy financial media. Like these types of interviews and these types of coverage is no joke, right? And the fact that, you have to kind of go a little bit low in the article. They don't bury it completely, but it's on the lower end, right? But it's there, and it makes his policy, his stance on it extremely clear. Now, on yesterday's episode, I when I found this out, I said I don't like this, and the reason I don't like this is because Jamie Dimon has not been very, very friendly towards the industry, towards Bitcoin. And it was a rumor, according to this Fortune article that's hosted by Yahoo Finance, Donald Trump cozies up to Wall Street and eyes Jamie Dimon for Treasury Secretary. I did not like that. Why did I not like that? Well, I don't know if I'm going to play the entire clip. Here are some moments of Jamie Dimon over the years talking about Bitcoin.
Care less about Bitcoin. I don't know why I said anything about it. I don't personally understand the value of something that has no actual value.
Bitcoin hit a new high today.
I could care less what Bitcoin trades for, how it trades, why it trades, who trades it. If you're stupid enough to buy it, you'll pay the price for it one day. Tulip bulbs traded for $75,000 once, something like that. So every day, you have CNBC, nonstop Bitcoin. Who cares about Bitcoin? My daughter sent me an email saying, Dad, I own 2 Bitcoins. My formerly smart daughter. But this is the last time I'm ever going to answer a question about Bitcoin because I really don't care. I didn't want to be the spokesman against Bitcoin. I don't really get that's the point, okay? And blockchain is real, it's technology, but Bitcoin is not the same as a fiat currency.
I personally think that Bitcoin is worthless, but I don't want to be a spokesman. I don't care. It makes no difference to me.
I think there's a good chance that when we get to that 20 million Bitcoins,
they go to 42.
No, that Satoshi's going to come on there, laugh hysterically, go quiet, all Bitcoin's going to be erased.
I think,
how the hell do you know it's going to stop at 21? I've never met one person who told me they know for a fact. They take that as Bitcoin itself is a hyped up fraud. It's a pet rock.
You're back to that?
Yeah,
really?
Of course, yeah.
But it has all the characteristics of a store of value. It's immutable. It's scarce.
Totally untrue. It's
21 million.
Well, yeah, really. How do you know it's going to stop at 21 million?
Because
I've mentioned this to people
Satoshi.
Too. Everyone says that. Well, maybe it's going to get to 21 million, and Satoshi's picture is going to come up and laugh at you all. I've always been deeply opposed to crypto, Bitcoin, etc.
So, okay, you guys get the point. I literally played you a minute and 43 seconds of a montage of this guy just absolutely shitting on Bitcoin, which is when I heard this, I told you guys yesterday, if you're watching yesterday's episode, I said, I do not like this whatsoever. Now, what was really interesting though, and again, back to the game theory, back to the incentives, Max Kaiser's quote, "You don't change Bitcoin, Bitcoin changes you." Check out this Forbes article. He changed his tune. Trump reveals JP Morgan CEO's sudden Bitcoin and crypto flip amid huge price surge. Now, is it because of the huge price surge? And we'll get into more details of the articles in a second. Is it because of the huge price surge? No, it was very simple. If it's part of the Republican platform to be pro-Bitcoin, if the Trump administration is accepting donations from the Bitcoin industry and Bitcoin miners, right? You can't have a Treasury Secretary, right, be Janet Yellen 2.0 and be hostile towards the industry. So what happened was very simple behind closed doors. Jamie, if you want to be Treasury Secretary, this bullshit can't have that anymore. And what happens? I actually love Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a great thing. And this is what I'm talking about incentives. This is what I'm talking about the game theory. Now, I know a lot of you guys in the chat. I know what you guys are thinking. I don't trust him. I don't like him. He's a banker. Look at all the shit he said. How could you trust him, Nico? You don't have to trust him. Trust his incentives. If the Republican Party is getting major donations from the Bitcoin industry, the Republican Party is now in the pocket of the Bitcoin industry. This is exactly what the bankers do to put the politicians in their pockets. Except now, we are putting them in our pockets. This is how the game is played. This is how it's always been played. So I know it's hard for a lot of people to accept that, but this is why Jamie Dimon changed his tune. It's literally why he found God or found Satoshi. Not equivalent whatsoever, but you guys get what I'm trying to say. Anyways, so let's read some of the details. Bitcoin has rocketed higher over the last year as the CEO of the world's largest asset manager, BlackRock, admits he got Bitcoin wrong. The Bitcoin price has returned to near its all-time, powered by Wall Street's long-awaited arrival and growing possibility of a major political and regulatory earthquake. Now, as Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen admits her fears over the future of the U.S. dollar, former U.S. President and 2024 Republican White House race nominee Donald Trump has revealed JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon, an arch Bitcoin and crypto skeptic, has all of a sudden changed his tune. How funny is that? Jamie Dimon was, and I'm assuming this is in Trump's voice. Jamie Dimon was, very negative, and now all of a sudden he's changed his tune a little bit. Trump told Bloomberg last month, following a private audience in which he met with Dimon and around 80 other business executives that included a Citi's CEO, Bank of America's CEO, and Apple's CEO Tim Cook, and was described by Trump as a love fest. Dimon has remained a fiercely outspoken Bitcoin and crypto critic, even as Wall Street began to warm up the technology, calling it a fraud and Ponzi scheme in April. Dimon has said that if he was in government, he'd shut it down, and branded Bitcoin a waste of time, calling it a pet rock that does nothing. However, Dimon has led JP Morgan in developing and deploying its own blockchain and cryptocurrency, JPM Coin, to speed up and reduce the cost of transactions. Trump also didn't rule out considering Dimon for U.S. Treasury Secretary if he retakes the White House in November, saying he has a lot of respect for Jamie Dimon. JP Morgan declined to comment on Trump's remarks when asked by Reuters. This week, Trump named the pro-Bitcoin and crypto former venture capitalist J.D. Vance as his 2024 running mate. Trump has leaned into Bitcoin and crypto in recent months after making millions of dollars from a series of crypto-based digital trading cards, the NFTs, putting him starkly at odds with the Biden administration's anti-crypto stance. Trump declared support for crypto in May and began accepting campaign donations in Bitcoin and a handful of other cryptocurrencies. I've gotten to know people in the industry. They're top flight people, said Trump. Okay, so what is happening? Let's analyze this article, because there's a lot said in this article that you have to kind of interpret. You have to analyze and you have to understand what's going on. Okay, so he elects Jamie Dimon as Treasury Secretary, but he can't have Jamie Dimon as Treasury Secretary saying if he was in government, he would take it down, because why? That would go against Trump's donors. You know who Trump's donors are? The Bitcoin miners and the Bitcoin mining industry. You understand where this is going, right? So at the end of the day, money makes the world go round. And in politics, that is most definitely true. In current American politics, and I would say most politics around the world, money is how you get elected. And as our industry continues to grow and thrive and get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, we are going to have more and more and more influence over society as a whole. And this is just the very beginning of just that. And think about how powerful that is. Like, think about that. Like, it gives me kind of chills talking about it, that our industry has so much weight that it's able to not, because internally, I bet you he hasn't changed his opinion, but publicly he has to change his opinion if he wants that sweet treasury spot, right? Our industry holds so much power that now you have the CEO of the world's largest bank stuck between a rock and a hard place. And basically he has to make the decision, holy cow, if I want that treasury spot, I got to change my stance on Bitcoin or else Trump won't give it to me, because Trump's not going to give that spot to me because a big part of his donor base is coming from the Bitcoin industry themselves, including Silicon Valley. See how that works? That's game theory, ladies and gentlemen. This is the power of Bitcoin. This is the power of our movement, and it's on the ascendant. It's coming up. We're just beginning. This is just beginning. This is how it works. How the banks currently own the government and how they just run shit. Like, you know, you'll see where things are going. I see Opti pulling something up.
Wait, not yet. Don't pull it in yet. Don't pull it in yet.
But yeah, I mean, dude, like it's pretty crazy. Like it's pretty crazy in the sense of like, dude, our industry holds weight, man. Like it's influential. It's influential and it's powerful to the point that it might cause the Democrats the election, because they took an anti-Bitcoin stance, and that created an opportunity for the opposing political party. And then when Trump identified that, and we played you guys the clip, right? When he started testing it, when Vivek whispered it in his ear, and he was like, and that would be anti-CBDC. And the crowd was like, woo! And Trump's like, wow, that really worked. And he just kept doubling down. And then, of course, that led to his support of Bitcoin, right? And then what happens if you're in the industry and you've been being prosecuted by the current administration? You're like, okay, let's support this guy because he's pro our industry, right? And then one thing led to another, and now we're here, right? Where the CEO of America's largest bank, you know, and of course, you know, there's a revolving door in Washington, D.C., right? Where Goldman Sachs executives, bank executives, they become Treasury Secretary. That's like kind of how the shtick works. He's kind of stuck in a place. It's like, Jamie, I do like you. I respect you a lot, bro, but you can't be saying anti-Bitcoin stuff. My donors aren't going to really like that, you know? And then you hear Trump going on Forbes basically saying, oh, he's changed his mind, right? So, you know, it's just hilarious how all that stuff works. Anyways, Opti, pass it on to you.
All right. Well. Love your takes, Nico. It was great. Good connecting the dots. I might take a little, a flip side of this a little bit. Like everyone in the chat is saying, oh, Jamie Dimon's dumb. He didn't understand Bitcoin. I'm completely on the opposite side. I've been convinced for a long time that Jamie Dimon fully understands what Bitcoin is. I'm convinced he was probably doing the billionaire FUD playbook that I constantly talk about. We've seen this play out throughout the history of Bitcoin, is that you FUD Bitcoin, you pack your bags, and then once it's, politically viable or career, when it's not career suicide, you come out and say Bitcoin is good. Well, we've gotten to that point now where it's no longer career suicide to embrace Bitcoin. It's becoming career suicide to not embrace Bitcoin. And like Nico was saying, if he wants to get that treasury position, treasury of secretary or whatever the position is, I'm blanking right now, he is following his incentives and he wants that position. I'm guessing he wants that position. But, Jamie Dimon has been, at least publicly, a huge skeptic on Bitcoin. He said all the bad things about Bitcoin, all the bad things about Bitcoiners. And yet he is the real criminal here. I don't even know if I can say it, but let's go, go just Google who he was banking.
Jamie Dimon is a great guy, He's
the
pro Bitcoin, Bitcoin Treasury Secretary.
Dude, I love him. I love him.
Great guy. What are you talking about? He's a good dude.
Exactly. Dude. But he famously banked someone that was in the news a couple of years ago.
When they come on our side, Opti, they're friends now.
hey, I'm just saying, the audience
He's on our
is
side now,
here.
Opti. Well, he's on our side now.
Yeah, to an extent. So
Opti, he bent the knee.
I don't know yet. I'm not convinced yet. I think this is, from my perspective, my vantage point, it just seems like some flowery words. He's saying what needs to be said. But I think this is more signal of where we are right now. This is the zeitgeist happening right now, where everyone is changing their tune, where it's okay to talk about Bitcoin. It's okay to embrace Bitcoin, which is obviously a good thing. Like reading the temperature of the room, now that he's coming out and saying Bitcoin, whether it's because he wants to get that position or whether he really believes it or whether he just realizes publicly he's okay to say this now. I think he's known what Bitcoin is for a long time, but publicly wasn't able to say it. So even if I don't like him, even if he is, one of the final bosses in the banking game, him coming out and saying Bitcoin, even in good light, I think it's good for Bitcoin. And this is where we are right now, where people are looking to the Jamie Dimons and Larry Finks of the world. And ever since Larry Fink came out and said Bitcoin is good, everyone is slowly but surely changing their tune. And again, if I'm putting my tinfoil hat on, it does seem a little too coordinated for me. Maybe it's just because it's happening so fast. And I'm like, all right, where am I going to get got? We've seen this play out for a long time. We can mention the 2008 banking crisis where, the bankers never lose. And here we are. Now they're embracing Bitcoin. So as much as I love hearing it, I'm also kind of a little paranoid. Maybe I got PTSD, but this is where the trend is going, is that now people are able to embrace Bitcoin, even if it is JP Morgan. And also, JP Morgan has had some long-standing investments in Ethereum. So we know they've been in the game for a long time. JP Morgan is the official, I forget what the official term is, but they're the official participant of the Larry Fink BlackRock ETF. So we know, again, the classic meme, watch what they do, not what they say. We know they've been in Bitcoin. I know Jamie Dimon has for a long time had these Bitcoin conversations. So I'm not surprised that we're seeing this play out in real time. It's just publicly they weren't able to embrace Bitcoin. But there was something in that article that I thought was probably the most interesting aspect of that article, was that idea of the closed door meeting with 80 of the top CEOs of the world. And it was a love fest, and they're all talking about Bitcoin. They're all embracing Bitcoin, which is something we've been saying here for a while, that I think after a couple of quarters or maybe going into next year, who knows the time frame, we're going to see that some of these big corporations, some of these huge CEOs that people, love and embrace, coming out as being Bitcoiners. And of course, that's going to be good for Bitcoin eventually if people aren't just buying an ETF and they're taking Bitcoin into custody. But on that point, I do want to bring up this screenshot I took this morning. I was going to tweet this, and I didn't realize it was going to be just perfect for the show. So there's two Bitcoiners Bitcoiners right now, and this is from Nostr. We have Odell in all caps. He goes, Trump and his neo-tech supporters, Theo, A16Z, Elon, etc., Jamie Dimon, Mark Cuban, will likely accelerate coin adoption substantially. Seems obvious. Many in denial. And then Jeff, I don't even know who Jeff is, but this is how the Nostr algorithm showed it to me. And he goes, stop sucking up to politicians and bankers. Where we're going, we don't need them. So there's two opposing views right now in regards to where Bitcoiners are thinking and the vibe here, where it's like, yes, of course, this will accelerate adoption, but also, yes, of course, like keep your head on a swivel, because it feels like when the boogeymen come join us, like we're like, oh man, are we really doing what we think we're doing? I still think Bitcoin will win. I still think Bitcoin can withstand its decentralization as long as we're all working from first principles. But hey, they're here to pump our bags. So make sure you are taking your Bitcoin into custody. Don't buy a Bitcoin ETF, run a node, make sure that the Bitcoin network stays as decentralized as possible and that coin gets distributed into as many people's hands as possible. So like, hey, it's all good for Bitcoin, but again, let's stay vigilant and make sure we don't get blindsided. So no hero worship, but if they're coming out saying Bitcoin is good or changing their tune now, it just goes to show where the trend is going. And I know I've said this for a while and we don't know, and you can fact check me later, but it does feel like this time is different and things are going to go absolutely nuclear in 2025.
Yeah, man. Look, you said something about the hero worshiping and that stuff, and it's like it's not hero worshiping. It's like,
no, I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying
I understand, but yeah. It's kind of like don't trust them, trust their incentives.
I agree,
right? And it's like I bet you Jamie Dimon right now is kind of like, shucks, maybe I should have just kept my mouth shut. Because I might not get that treasury position because of all the shit I talked about Bitcoin. And how am I coming to that conclusion? That Forbes article. The fact that Trump had to provide air cover for Jamie Dimon and basically say, oh no, he's changed his mind, tells you that Trump wouldn't say that just to say that. He's saying that because now he has a donor base that he has to make happy. And that donor base is part of the Bitcoin industry, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, guys, this means we're winning. Our movement is winning. And let's stay winning. Anyways, let's get to the culture, learn about some nodes. Seems like Opti has a presentation for us. Looking forward to it. Let's get to it.
The Daily Culture.
All right, everybody, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor, the Orange Pill app. Stack friends who stack sats. Join the 11,178 Bitcoiners that are currently on the app. To download it, scan the QR code, check the link in the video description. It will take you directly to the Orange Pill app where you can download it. It's a great application where you can connect with fellow Bitcoiners, right? So if you're in a new city, you don't know anyone around you, perhaps you lived in your city and you just don't know any Bitcoiners, it has a really cool geographical feature that it will literally show you the Bitcoiners that are near you. It gives you the ability to send them a message, to connect with them. It's also the best way to reach me directly. So I don't really answer my Twitter DMs. I don't really answer my emails, get way too many messages these days. If you want to reach me directly, you want to talk to me, download the Orange Pill app, send me a DM, and I will get back to you. Also, if you're going to the Bitcoin Nashville and you don't know enough events, the Orange Pill app is the resource for events. So it will literally show you the events that are happening near you, the Bitcoin events that are happening near you, and the Bitcoin events to be at. So this is like the Bitcoin social layer. Download the Orange Pill app today, scan the QR code, or check the link in the video description. Man, I'm so...
Hey, let me full screen this, Nico. I want to do a little PSA here, guys. Look, don't tune out here. This is important information. It will get a little technical. It's not as fun as dunking on, Mark Cuban and Jamie Dimon.
Context. What are we talking about?
I'm going to give that context. We're going to be talking about nodes, and we did a poll yesterday, And this is why we're talking about it today. And I forget how many people, it was like 400 of you guys that voted, and 75% of you guys do not run a node. I know it may sound difficult, but it's really not that hard. And this is why we're going to do today's culture on nodes. So I'll get through this as quickly as possible, as painless as possible. And then I do have my Start9 server over here so that I can kind of show you the interface and all that stuff. So first and foremost, what is a node? Very simply, a Bitcoin node is a computer that is connected to the Bitcoin network running the Bitcoin software. Nodes follow the protocol rules to validate and relay transactions and blocks. A node is essentially a participant in the Bitcoin network, helping to ensure the integrity and consensus of the Bitcoin blockchain. Or as I like to say, it's just your copy of every transaction that ever happened on the Bitcoin time chain / blockchain. You want to be able to verify your own transactions so you know what's going on the time chain, so you don't have to trust other people. So again, what does a node do? Nodes broadcast and relay transactions to other nodes and miners. Miners batch these transactions into blocks and publish those blocks to the blockchain, validating the transactions. Nodes receive these blocks, share them amongst one another, and verify that the miners are following the rules of the network. This is probably the most important part. When a node receives a new transaction or block, it relays it to its peers so that all nodes and miners can remain in sync and maintain identical blockchain. So why do you need a node? Well, one, so you can verify Bitcoin supplies, so that you can independently verify the state of the Bitcoin network. Again, so that you can follow the rules of the Bitcoin network and you ensure that other people are following the rules. And second, to prevent double spending of Bitcoin. A node will automatically reject any Bitcoin that has already been spent before, ensuring that you don't double spend your Bitcoin. And then probably personally for you guys, what might be the most important aspect besides verifying what's going on in the Bitcoin network and that, you know, the Bitcoin rules are being followed, is that you use Bitcoin without a third party. Remember what it said in the white paper. Money on the internet works based on trust. Well, now you don't have to trust people. But if you are using someone else's node, then you are trusting someone else to give you the Bitcoin blockchain to ensure that they're sending your transactions. But also, you're giving up some of your privacy. So a node allows users to broadcast and verify their own transactions rather than relying on someone else. Again, just wrapping it up, key takeaways before I give you some options. A Bitcoin node stores and verifies each block in the blockchain. Nodes form a network by connecting and sharing blocks and transactions with one another. A node allows a user to verify Bitcoin balances without a trusted third party. And by running a node, a user is capable of enforcing the rules of the network, ensuring that they are not being deceived and that other parties cannot maliciously change Bitcoin's rule set. This is why you would want one. Okay, now yesterday in the chat, you know, where I'm going to show you Start9 because I love it. I think it's the best one now, but there are other options. If you don't want to spend any money, you already have this requirements. Go to bitcoin.org, come up here to participate and hit run a full node. And then you'll go over here to running a full node and you can reread all this stuff. You can, you know, I would recommend you read it all first, or at least read what is applicable to you, and then download a Bitcoin core node and, you know, start verifying your own transactions. But here, just for those people wondering whether they have the minimum requirements, all you need is a desktop, a laptop hardware running a recent version of Windows, Mac OS, or Linux. You need 7 gigs of free disk space, accessible at a minimum read-write speed of 100 megabytes. You need 2 gigs of RAM or memory. You need internet. You need semi-decent internet. You probably already have good enough internet if you're watching this. You need to make sure that this computer is connected to the internet constantly and that it runs 6 hours a day. So it could literally be an old laptop. I wouldn't necessarily recommend you use your daily driver for your, you know, whatever laptop you're using right now or your desktop, but you can do that. It's up to you. Or you do what we would recommend is you get yourself a standalone node. So it sits at your house. It's always running. It's always verifying the Bitcoin network. And we love Start9.
You get yourself a dedicated computer that's always running Bitcoin and always connected to the internet.
Exactly. But hey, if these price points are too much, you could get yourself a ThinkPad on eBay for like $100, put a new SSD in it, and you're good to go. Or an old laptop you have, just reflash Start OS on it, and you're good to go. So we love Start9. I'm a huge fan of Start9. I just got mine, I think, like a month ago. I think it's the top notch. There are other options, you know, Umbral, MyNode, or whatever, but I absolutely love the Start9. It's the GOAT. Like, personally, I think it's the GOAT. And there's 2 options. There's a server one, $600. I had a conversation with Matt Hill when he came on last time, and he's like, look, If you're not a paranoid person like myself, a server one's great. It's just not completely open source software or hardware, but it's a solid node. You know, the attack vectors are minimum, but if you are like me and you're a little more paranoid, then you get yourself a server pure. It does cost more, but it's all open source hardware, so it's been checked. There's no back doors. It's completely secure. You're making sure that there is no, you know, potentially back doors on your node. Again, you know, if you just want to do DIY it yourself, you can just flash start OS on a Raspberry Pi or your desktop, laptop, mini PC, most of them. It will take a little more, you know, it's free, but there is a little technical hurdle to doing that process. And if you're like me, man, you just buy yourself a server pure, plug it in, run everything you want on it, and it's beautiful. Okay, now moving over here, I do want to pull up my interface here, and this is on a different laptop right here. So this is the Start9 server interface. When you download it, you'll have to add services on the marketplace. So here's the marketplace. It's not changing over here. What's going on? There we go. Okay, so you can see all the Start9, the apps that you can put on your server. There's a bunch of different stuff you can do. You know, your what are the password organizers? You can download Jam. You know, CoinJoin. You can download different LND processes. You can do, you know, BTC Pay server. There's mempool. There's a lot of cool stuff on here that you can do. Like I have here, I pretty much just use this as a node. So I have Bitcoin Core connected to Electrum server. I've been thinking about playing with BTC Pay server. I have Core Lightning connected to my Zeus on my phone. So you can run your own Lightning wallet on your phone connected to your own node. And this one, not on this computer particularly, but it's connected to Sparrow on a different laptop. I just haven't gotten to this computer yet. But my favorite part here, guys, is literally running my own instance of mempool. So go to mempool. You know, you can see here, I clicked it here. Let me go back. If you click right here, run your own instance of mempool, and you can check what's happening on the Bitcoin network itself via your own mempool. So this is what my node is telling me the mempool is doing. So I'm verifying this myself. You know, fees are low. Could be a good time to consolidate transactions. It's, you know, you can get all the blocks coming in. Like I love this Start9. This mempool might be my favorite thing to do, is just instead of going to mempool.space and trusting the dudes over at mempool.space, which is Wiz, I trust him, but also I'm trying to minimize trust. I run my own. So it's pretty simple, guys. Like, this is why I highly recommend a Start9 server. Get yourself a pure. I know it's an investment, but it's beautiful. It sits in the corner. It's quiet, connected to your router, and you're good to go. You can connect this to all of your wallets, and you're completely sovereign. Me and Nico joke all the time about it. Like, when you leave your house and you have your wallet connected to your Start9 server, you just feel so sovereign. You're like, hell yeah, I run my own sovereign computing. My own node is verifying all of my wallets. It's very, very simple process. But remember, guys, you want to run a node so that you can verify what's going on the Bitcoin network yourself. Don't trust someone else. It's very simple. There's a spectrum here. You can do the free process where you just download a Bitcoin Core on a laptop that you have sitting around. That's great. You don't have to spend money if you don't want to, or you go all the way and you basically get the Lambo of nodes, which in my opinion is the Start9. It's in my opinion the best one. It's the GOAT. The Start9 server pure is the best, and I absolutely love it. I'm a huge fan. I talk about it constantly on the show. But also, again, if you're a little more technical, Matt Hill, when I had him on the show, we were talking after the show, and he's like, look, dude, our company is not just standalone nodes. Like, they sell the standalone nodes so that they can build the Start OS software. So if you're a little more technical, flash Start OS on a laptop, you know, get yourself a cheap ThinkPad off eBay, and you can basically set up a node yourself. But the features of a standalone node is it's going to be running all the time. You won't have to sync the blockchain up if you close your computer, so you can basically do whatever you want instantly. It's going to connect to your phones. It's absolutely worth the cost to get yourself a Start9 node. But it's very simple, guys. You need to run a node. Stop trusting someone else. with what's going on the Bitcoin time chain. Become truly sovereign. Make sure you're verifying what's happening on the Bitcoin network yourself. If you are not running the Bitcoin software, I would argue you're not really using Bitcoin. But I don't want to just give purity tests here. Make sure, first and foremost, I think there's steps here. Make sure you buy some Bitcoin. Then make sure you're taking that Bitcoin into custody. Once that Bitcoin's into custody, make sure you're running a node so that every time you take Bitcoin off an exchange or you receive Bitcoin from someone, you are verifying that you are actually getting Bitcoin. How do you know you're getting real Bitcoin? Is because you're running a node and you're verifying that this is actually Bitcoin and not some fake coin. This is why you need to use a Bitcoin node. And then, of course, the added benefit of you don't leak any of your privacy if you're running your own node. Like, these are the reasons you want to run a node. And the fact that I did a poll yesterday, shouts out, I think it was Matthew in the chat, Matthew J. He's like, run a poll about running your own node. And I was honestly surprised that 70% of you guys hanging out with us live do not run your own node. So I take some time to read up through this. Make sure you get to the process of running your own node. It's really not that hard. Like, I'm not that technical. When I was first trying to run a node, I literally couldn't because I just wasn't technical enough. But now I know enough command line where I can run any node. But also, you don't need to be a technical computer whiz to run a node. You can just buy a standalone node, plug it into your router, and that's about it. So there's a spectrum here from if you really want to like initiate yourself, download Bitcoin Core, get it on a laptop. I feel like it's almost a rite of passage to download Bitcoin Core, on a laptop, see the initial block download, which will take about a day or so, depending on how strong your computer is. But you need to run a node. Very simply, you need to run a node. And also, one last thing before I pass it to Nico, someone in the chat was asking yesterday and today, can I run a node on my Android? There is, I think it's Knots that you can run on your phone, but you could also just download Zeus and Mutiny, and they'll do, I'm pretty sure it's like the neutrino filters, and you can run a Lightning node standalone on your phone. But highly recommend you get yourself your own node on your laptop, standalone node, so that it's just running constantly and you can verify your transactions. Again, I just love the Start9. I'm becoming a huge Start9 shill. Shouts out to the Start9 team because it's absolutely beautiful.
100%. Yeah, dude. And I think you did a great job just kind of giving everyone the...
Wait. Look, because I feel Bitcoin node shame. Yes, you should. I'm shaming you into running a node, but this is for your benefit. I'm like a dad here. Like, I know I'm being tough here, but I'm shaming you into running a node because this is for you. This literally doesn't benefit me in any way. This is for you to make sure that you are using Bitcoin, in my opinion, correctly. And this is what it's all about, is you becoming sovereign. There is some steps you're going to have to take, and we need as many people running nodes as possible. We need as many economic nodes out there as possible, meaning you are verifying your own transactions with your own node, because we do not want the Bitcoin network to get co-opted, especially considering all of the new entrants and then billionaires and bankers and politicians coming into the Bitcoin space. You need to run a Bitcoin node. Like, full stop.
Full stop.
If you're here, you need to run a node.
Yes, you do. The 72. We should run a poll again in about a week or so and see if those numbers improve. And we're gonna keep running polls until we shamed you. But I think Opti did a great job, just kind of giving you guys
wait, one more thing. Sorry, Nico.
No, not one more thing.
Wait, hold on. He says, sorry, I'm not spending $600 on something. Yeah,
I'm gonna get to that.
I agree. It's free. I'm just telling you.
I'm gonna get to that. So Opti, I think you did a great job kind of doing a overview perspective on what a node is, how you do it. I'm gonna just try to simplify it and as little words as possible. It's just a computer at your house that's running Bitcoin. Right. It'd be kind of annoying to run Bitcoin on a laptop, for example, because it's kind of resource intensive, and you're probably going to be shutting your laptop screen every once in a while. Right. Maybe if you just have a desktop that's like always just kind of sitting there, maybe run it there. But again, it's not a very heavy software, but it is something that is going to be running in the background constantly. So I would say having a dedicated device is great. That's where the Start9 comes in. And what Opti was showing in regards to the Start9 marketplace, that's at like another level altogether, where I think where this is going. And essentially what that is sovereign computing versus cloud computing. Cloud computing is when you use someone else's computer. And the way that things work today is when you send a message, for example, on Signal, you send it from your phone to the Signal server to the other person, right? So there's an intermediary in place. But with things like Start9, there's a variety of apps where the messaging or even hosting files is hosted by yourself. So let's say I'm sending a message from my Start9 to Opti Start9. It's peer-to-peer. I'm sending it directly to Opti via Tor, so it's completely encrypted, and there is no intermediary, right? Let's say I'm hosting my own files on my Start9. I'm hosting those files. I'm not leaving those files on Google Drive. If I'm leaving files on Google Drive, those aren't my files. Those are Google's files, and I'm asking Google for permission to use that. That's what cloud computing is, and obviously that creates an issue, right? So a Start9 isn't just a Bitcoin node. It's the entry point to sovereign computing, where I think it is so awesome. Because imagine hosting all those things yourself, all those files yourself. Imagine hosting your own email server so you don't have to trust Google or you don't have to trust a third party. That's where I think this is going. That's what our boys over at Start9 are using. And if you're interested in getting yourself a Start9, use promo code simplybitcoin and you get 9% off. I highly recommend it. Initially, I reacted the same way. I saw someone mention the $600 thing. When the first one that came out, it was like 2 G's. And I literally like the Futurama meme, which is like, Matt, take my money, God damn you. And I got one of the first versions of the server peer. And I have not regretted it. It's one of the best investments. Yeah. It is surreal when I'm traveling, like if I'm in Canada or Portugal and I have to pull up my Bitcoin wallet and I just see it sinking, and I know it's sinking with my node all the way in Florida, right? I'm not trusting some random person's node, right? I'm not doxing my balance. I'm not doxing my transaction. Every time you go to mempool.space or blockstream.info and you go to those websites to check a transaction, you're doxing your IP address. And if you're looking up a specific transaction, they could pretty much tell, okay, this transaction probably has something to do with this IP address. When you use your own node, you're not doxing anything. You're just asking yourself, right, what the status is of that transaction, right? So that's what I would suggest. I think Opti did a great kind of a breakdown in terms of you can do this yourself, or you can be a convenience maxi like Nico and just buy yourself.
Hey man, I use Apple. I'm a convenience maxi, hence why I bought a Start9.
So the Start9 server peer is the best one. There's obviously a cheaper version, which is really good as well.
And the difference,
there's pros and cons. There's pros and cons.
The Start9 server peer is completely open source hardware, so you're comfortable in the idea and the thought that there is no backdoors. Yes, the server one does have just some off the shelf parts, but it's great. It's the attack vector is minor. So like if you're like me, just super paranoid, then you pay higher just to make sure that you're getting a completely safe device. But again, all the Start9 standalone nodes is pretty much you're buying them just for the further development of StartOS. So you can do that for free. And that's what we're here to show you. You can do this 100%. For free, or, you pay a little bit to secure your potential $1 million Bitcoin. Like, yes, it's an investment, but if we are going where we think we're going, you want to ensure that you are protecting yourself and you're verifying your Bitcoin yourself. So this is what it's about. Truly become sovereign. Don't just advocate about Bitcoin. Don't just take Bitcoin off an exchange into a wallet. Make sure you're verifying your transactions for yourself.
100% agree with that.
One last one for the audios. You run a node so no one can stop you from sending and receiving Bitcoin. This is another feature.
Yeah, and it's privacy, right? Again, if you don't run a node, you're trusting someone else's and you're using someone else's node. Don't do that. Become a sovereign individual. Part of that is obviously taking Bitcoin into self-custody. And the next step is running your own version of the Bitcoin software so you don't have to trust someone else's. Remember, when the fork wars happened, the reason that they weren't able to get their way and increase the block size was because there was many individuals all around the world, and they said, you know what? I'm just not downloading that version of Bitcoin. I'm sticking with my version of Bitcoin. which makes Bitcoin extremely hard to co-opt. And the more people run their own version of Bitcoin, that's their vote. That's their vote to basically say, no, I don't want to do that. If you don't run your own node, you're trusting on someone else's vote, which, sometimes it will be in your favor, sometimes it won't. I would suggest taking that power back into your own hands. Anyways, guys, this was Simply Bitcoin for July 18, 2024. I'm your host, Nico. This is my co-host, Optimus Fields. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. We broke 200 likes, some good viewership. So it seems like you guys are enjoying the shows as of late. Really appreciate the support. We wouldn't be here without you. And we'll be back Friday for an episode of Simply Bitcoin Live. And next week, ladies and gentlemen, we will be live streaming from Nashville, Tennessee. And I'm sure we're going to have some great shows for you guys. All right, everybody. Until then, love you all. Peace out, everybody.
Episode was brought to you by bitcoinwell.com, on a mission to enable independence.